Hello and welcome to another edition of the Ask the Experts Weekend. This, of course, is Saturday at 3 p.m. That means it's only time for one thing. Larry Perry has just sat down and he's ready to answer your questions because this is the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO. All automotive questions running through your brain right now. You always wondered, if only I had a guy I could just ask to see if this is really a problem, or if it's one of those problems I can wait and see if it gets worse, because Larry just loves those kind of problems. Call right now, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. Larry, don't you just love people waiting until it's a massive problem before they come to you?
Well, you got to look at the bright side of that. You know, the more screwed up they make it, the more work they've got to have done. So who am I to complain about that? I mean, come on. Hey, folks, it's 3 o'clock. I'm Larry Perry, and you're tuned in to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. So you new listeners know, well, we need your calls. This is an interactive automotive and mechanical advice program where we help you with your car problems, truck problems, I don't even want to get into lawn equipment, but, hey, if it goes there, so be it. It's all fair game, and anything mechanical. And it's been our pleasure to help you with these items and things for over 31 years, be 32 years, I guess, in May. Me personally, I'm an automotive shop owner and have been for many, many years. I'm also a master auto technician and have been since 1982. So to sum it up, I guess that's pretty much my qualifications. I've been in the business an awful long time. To make the program work, like I said, we need your calls. And the lines are open at 844-580-9326. And remember, all your calls and your car questions, well, they get indexed by this brilliant young man by the name of Logan. And He edits these things and gets them all situated, and then he puts them on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. So other folks searching for answers like yours will be able to get the same needed information, years from now. Think about that. Folks will be able to play back your car questions and hear my comments years from now. And so, even you can go back and, I forget how many YouTube questions there is on there now. There's probably a few hundred, and we get a lot of positive comments from them. We had a comment from Baghdad, Iraq the other day I thought was actually pretty cool. But, it's just amazing how small of a world the internet made. You know that? I mean, it literally just made the world a much smaller place. And I get so many emails from the YouTube channel. It's unbelievable. I mean, they're asking me questions about cars I haven't even heard of. It's really, really, really neat. But folks, if we can help you, listen, dash warning lights, your ABS, a safety restraint system light, check engine light, service engine soon. All those are fair game. Maybe your fuel economy is taking a nosedive here over the last little bit. A lot of vehicles got engine recalls and everything else over oil consumption. AC, well, folks, I know it's only February, but the temperatures are already starting to demand a little air conditioning action here. And as we get into this summer and it starts getting hotter and you do have AC issues, listen, I tell you, I don't care if you're on the other side of the planet. It might be a good idea to contact me and just run it past me first before you accept some great big huge estimate, because air conditioning is a little different than it used to be. We're dealing with variable displacement compressors now, and there's other things that actually go wrong with them other than you need to replace the whole entire AC system. So, it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion or just get a little advice on something like that when it comes up. Maybe you got a recall notice in the mail. Maybe you got a question about a technical service bulletin. Want to know maybe if there is one on your car. Antique, classic car issues. And folks, we take questions on any gas, hybrid, electric, or diesel vehicle. I also had a special request sometime today to talk about extended warranties. And there's a couple things just are common sense, but you would be surprised how many people get caught up in some of this extended warranty stuff during the purchase of a new car. But me and Josh is going to have a little conversation about that later on in the show today. Remember, I do have a complete database of all the listed recalls and technical safety bulletins from way back, I guess from like 1980 to current date. All you need to do is give us a call. Folks, we still have plenty of lines open at 844-580-9326. All you'll do is give our producer Josh the year, make, and model of your vehicle and a brief description of your problem, and you'll be placed on a brief hold, and we'll take your call in the order that we received it. And also remember, for immediate help, you can call the shop number. I think there'll be somebody there to answer it. I never know. 407-629-2661. I do want to mention the open mic option. You can go to WDBO.com on your smartphone and download the app if you don't already have it. And you can leave us an open mic car question. Just give us the year, make, and model and the issue you're having, and we'll get to those after the bottom of the 4 o'clock news break. And you can also ask a car question by emailing me, Larry@magicmechanic.com. Folks, I have been doing corporate tax stuff all weekend long, so if you've got an email in my box that I haven't gotten to yet, that's my excuse, all right? I'll try to get to most of them tomorrow, but you know how tax stuff is. So if you do want to send me an email, it's Larry@magicmechanic.com. And we'll get them answered for you as soon as possible. And folks, that number again, we still have 2 lines open, 844-580-9326, or I tell folks the easiest way to keep remembering it is the 844. If you can remember that and the station that you're listening to, 580 WDBO. All right, with that being said, we're going to head out to Palm Bay, and we're going to talk to Richard. Richard, what's going on with your 2014 Dodge Avenger?
Hey, Larry, I got 2 questions here. One is I want to change the front rubber brake hoses on my disc brakes, and I just wonder if there's any tips for that. Let me just give you a little bit of background. I've bled my brakes many times with, I've got this little Mighty Vac power brake bleeder that runs off my air compressor, so I've done that many times. I know my way around bleeding brakes without introducing any air into the system. You know, I know not to let the fluid run out of the master cylinder and all, the reservoir in the master cylinder and all that stuff. So I'm comfortable messing with the brakes. I've never changed rubber brake lines before. Any tips on there other than just being real quick and using common sense to prevent introducing air into the system? That's my first question.
Well, if you take a brake line off, you're going to get air into the system, Richard. There's no question about that. But now, listen, there's two types of brake hoses. I don't know which ones you got on that car. Some of them, where they join into the other hose or into the caliper, will use a brass seal ring. You know what I'm talking about? It's what they use for a gasket. It's a brass or a copper crush washer. Some of them use those, and you need to make sure that you got a new one when you go back in with it. Most of them use some type of a crush washer going into the caliper, and usually on the other end there'll be a flared compression fitting. So my biggest thing is to make sure that you get new crush washers with your brake hoses. They'll come in all kinds of different sizes, but you want to make sure that you get the correct size. And then after you get the brake hoses on there, listen, I'd let you bleed brakes on my truck. How's that? It sounds like you're pretty proficient at it, so you know how to use a vacuum bleeder, and you know not to let the reservoir run dry between brake bleeds. So you're good with that. You're going to ace that job. What's the second question, Richard?
So, thanks, Larry. Second question. Recently, I got my rear window retinted. I had tint on the car from when I bought it brand new. I put it on there. Great stuff. It's made by Lumar. Excellent product. And I went to the dealer, and I was talking to them about something else, but I just mentioned that, hey, I got a couple little air bubbles forming on my rear window. Well, they talked me into replacing the tinting under warranty, so there wasn't going to be any charge. They replaced the tinting, but the downside was that they scraped off all my heater wires in the process because they couldn't get the old coating, the old tint to delaminate. They soaked it overnight and everything. So This was supposed to be like a no money out of pocket retent, but I consider that to be a major safety issue. So I'm going to get a new back glass with the heater scripts built in. It's $425 installed. And I just wondered, is this just one of those hard life lessons that you just have to learn and that's just the way it is? Or I called Lumar. They don't cover it. The dealer, the installing dealer, which is like he's a pro-level dealer, they're great. I mean, they've given me good service, but they don't cover it either. So it's my problem. Is this just like one of those, just one of those hard knocks? You just have to learn it and just accept it? Or
listen, Richard, this isn't the first time anybody's ran into this. If you've got, a rear window defroster in your car and you put tint on it, and the tint fails after a certain period of time, the only way that I could, it being a 2014 model vehicle, we're talking 6, 7, if we're talking 6, 7, 8 years now, listen, if anything, it would be like this. If the tint failed even if the tint failed, technically it could not cause the rear defroster to fail. Now removing the tint could cause it to fail because you could, scratch it or whatever. But this is one of those things that just happens in life,
Okay.
I hate that you have to replace the rear glass, but it wouldn't be the first one I've seen having to be replaced. The tint wore out. It's almost impossible to get the tint back off, the old tint, without damaging the rear window defroster. And it's Florida. We want tint, to keep the inside of the car a little bit cooler. It is what it is. I really couldn't blame it on anybody. I can't even blame it on the tint on a 7, 8-year-old car. That's about all the tint's going to last, until it starts fading and, having problems with it here in Florida. So, Richard, thank you for your call. I hope we helped you out. And good luck on those brake hoses.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. Let's take a quick break. We got full lines now, so thank you, everybody, for utilizing the talent of Larry Perry for our own benefit. We got one line open, two now that Richard just said. Thank you very much. 844-580-9326. 844-580-9326. We're about 1 hour away from our open mic section. Just download the WDBO app and send them in accordingly. Jason is giving us a call from Orlando. Got a question with your 2005 Chevy. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, Jason.
Hey, thank you for taking my call today.
No problem.
I've been meaning to call, but so I have a like I said, an 05 for Chevy 2500, and it's leaking oil pretty bad. I replaced the rear main seal about 4 years ago, and which there was no oil for 4 years, and now it's back. And I'm wondering, is it worth replacing again or buying a new motor?
How many miles you got on the engine?
Well, according to the cluster, 135, but I bought the truck new, or bought the truck used, so if you put a new cluster in, it can do whatever miles it is. And the way the interior looked, it looked like it had more miles than it did, but it says 135,000. So.
Okay. And what engine's in it?
This is a 6-liter.
Okay. All right. Is it a 2 or 4-wheel drive?
It's 2.
Okay. Well, to put a rear main seal in it, I mean, we're talking about pulling the transmission out and the flex plate and popping a new seal in it. Now, that's got a, if I'm not mistaken, that's not just a pound-in rear seal. That's got a cover.
A plate.
Yeah, the plate, and the plate itself has a seal in it too. So the plate can leak, or the seal itself can leak.
Right.
You got good oil pressure? Is the engine burning any oil?
It's not burning oil, but it's leaking a lot now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's got a good oil pressure. It's about a little under 40 psi when it's idling, probably 20, maybe 22 psi. But when I'm driving, it's about 40.
Yeah.
So,
Jason, I mean, you got to look at it like this. All right. And I'm just quoting this off the top of my head. Pull the transmission out of the vehicle, probably replace the actual plate and the seal. You can buy that as an assembly from General Motors. It comes already together, so that would be my plan of attack for it. You're going to wind up spending, probably $1,500, something like that, to get a rear seal in it. I mean, there's really not anything else that you can do if it's leaking that bad. You got to figure it like this. I mean, to replace an engine in a vehicle like that, why, you'd be up to $8,000 or $9,000. So if the motor sounds okay and it's not smoking, and it's got good oil pressure, it's not making any stupid noises, I don't see that you've got any choice in the matter, to be honest with you.
Right.
I think that, as far as repairing the rear seal, I think that is I think if you don't have any other problems with it, I think that's probably the best route I could ever tell you to go with it. Just fix the rear seal. Okay. And if there's any other, service that needs to be done, maybe it needs a transmission service, check the U-joints. If it needs them, go ahead and pound a new set in while the drive shaft's out. Maybe go ahead and service the differential. Do whatever other maintenance there is on it. They don't give pickup trucks away anymore, so we got to hang on to them as long as we can. There ain't no reason not to keep them in tip-top shape, because they're always worth every dime you spend on them. You'll always get it back out if it's a truck. And plus, if the interior gets rough in it, why, there's Orlando Auto Upholstery that'll always go back out there and make them seats look brand new. Door panels, they take care of all that. Even though it's an older truck, listen, they are worth taking care of, keeping them in tip-top shape and hanging on to them. Thanks for your call, Jason.
All things automotive. What oil to use? What engine is best? Is this car worth the hassle that I put into it to keep it running every single day? That's what we're doing. That's what we're here for. That's what we love to do every Saturday at 3 p.m. 844-580-9326. 844-580 WDBO will put you on the air with Larry answering your questions. Osman is calling in from Orlando. Go ahead, Osman.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, buddy.
I'm working on a 2010 Ford Fusion, and I'm in the process of replacing all 4 spark plugs. However, one of the spark plugs seemed to be frozen in place, and I'm using extreme caution to try to avoid stripping the threads. I did put some PB Blaster, let it soak for about 5-10 minutes, and re-attempted to remove it, but I'm afraid I'm applying too much torque or force. I might strip the threads. What do you recommend moving forward?
Listen, Osman, I'm gonna tell you that there's some vehicles. How many miles are on this car?
176,000.
Okay. Do you know if it's ever had spark plugs before?
No.
Okay.
That car was bought like a year ago.
All right. I'm gonna guess it's probably never had spark plugs, and I'm gonna use you as a poster child. And this sounds terrible, but we'll get to your problem here in a second, folks. This is what happens if you don't replace your spark plugs at 100,000 miles. And it's common. It happens all the time. You get a vehicle in, it starts running bad. It's got 150,000 miles on it. Mechanic tells you, well, you need to have a tune-up done, and you can't. And then they find out they can't get the spark plugs out of the aluminum head. See, the spark plug is made out of steel, and your cylinder head is made out of aluminum, and these are dissimilar metals. So if you leave them in there together too long, they'll literally grow together. And then when the mechanic goes to remove the spark plug, it usually will break off in the head, or it brings the threads with it. That's the reason, 100,000 mile, you got to have the spark plugs replaced in your engine. If you don't, and you leave them in there, they may work for another 20,000 mile, but guess what? Whenever you do have to have them removed, they're not going to come out. So just kind of keep that in mind. 100,000 mile, you got to do a tune-up on the car, even if it's running perfect. If not, you're going to be looking at World War III when you do have a problem. Osmond, in your case, and listen, I have had way more experience with spark plugs and aluminum cylinder heads than I'd love to admit. This is a situation, from Ford's Triton engines that they made for all the F-150s during a certain period of time. They were well known. If you tried to remove those spark plugs, bam, the daggone spark plugs would break off in the head. And what a nightmare to try to get those things out. So we learned a lot during that period. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to put this thing back together with that spark plug still in the engine. You can go ahead and put your new ones in. Go ahead and put everything back together. Put your coils back in, the whole 9 yards. And you start this engine up, and you get it good and hot. Get it up to normal operating temperature. Then you're going to go and you're going to pull the coil back off of the C spark plug and see if it'll break loose and come out then. I want that engine as hot as you can get it, and then try to remove the spark plug. What we're doing is we're trying to get that aluminum head to expand just a little bit to take some of the pressure off of the threads of that spark plug. But if it's already tight and you're trying to bring that thing out of there in a cold cylinder head, I guarantee you're going to bring the threads with it. Your best bet is get that motor as good and hot as you can. Just put everything back together just the way it was, start it up, run it, get it good and hot. Then go ahead and shut it off, and then try to get that spark plug out of there as fast as you can while that cylinder head is still containing that heat from the engine being ran. But you got to do it while the motor is hot. And on the Ford trucks, we had to do that. We had to go through that procedure on every spark plug. Start the engine up, get it run it, get it good and hot, and then put the new plug in. Start it back up, get the other one good and hot to take it out. If you didn't, you would wind up pulling the threads, or the plug would just break off in the head. So try that procedure. That's the only hope you have. Other than that, if the spark plug breaks off, the cylinder head's coming off of it most likely, because on that one you're probably going to have to drill it out if it breaks off, and then there'll have to be a time cert placed inside the head for the new threads, for be able to put a new spark plug back in it. So try my method. If that don't work, well, have a good weekend anyway, Osmond. We appreciate your call, buddy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Osmond. Let's head on over to Andy. Andy's on the hold from Live Oak. Go ahead, Andy.
Hey, how you doing, Larry?
I'm doing great, Andy.
First-time caller and listener today.
All right.
I love what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Got and we appreciate you. I've got an 04 Impreza, the TS wagon with a 2.5 in it. And when I bought the thing, it had the check engine light on, and I replaced the First Bank O2 sensor, just a simple thing, common. And it ran fine for a long time, but after a while, I started to have intermittent, real rough starts, and it wasn't throwing a code. Now, I suspect the camshaft sensor or the crankshaft sensor, but I'm not sure. Do you have any ideas what it could be? I mean, it does start after a couple of times of attempting it, but before that, it's a nightmare.
Okay.
When it does start back up, it runs fine. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to try a magic mechanic test. And, well, you're going to have to help me diagnose the problem, Andy.
All righty.
All right. This is the situation. When that car sets overnight, I want you to do something a little different when you go to start it up. When you go to start this thing, I want you to turn the key to the on position. Don't crank it. Turn it off.
Right.
Turn it back to the on position. Turn it off. Then go ahead and turn it to the on position, and then I want you to do that 3 times. I want you to cycle the key off to on 3 times, and then I want you to crank it. And if it fires right up without any hesitation, no excessive cranking, you need to put a fuel pump in it.
Okay.
All right, let me tell you why.
Do you think cycling? Go ahead.
See, there is a one-way check valve in the fuel pump itself. And what that does is it keeps the fuel system pressurized when the engine is not running. If that one-way check valve, for some reason or other, leaks fuel back into the tank, you're actually having to reprime the fuel system, chase air out of it before it's repressurized and ready to start and run the engine again. You see what I'm saying?
That's the rough start then.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. So if you cycle that key 3 times, what happens is you activate the fuel pump 3 different times. See, when you first turn the key on, the fuel pump comes on and runs for 3 seconds. That's a prime circuit. It does that on every car. 3-second prime.
Okay.
Well, in your case, 3 seconds isn't enough to prime the system because you've had fuel drain back into the gas tank. So by doing it 3 times and cycling the fuel pump 3 times, just by turning the key on and off, on and off, on and off, you got it pressurized. You hit the key, it fires right up. Well, there's 100%. We know exactly what's wrong with it. Now, you could take it to a shop, or including Magic Mechanic, and have what is called a residual fuel pressure test done. And you're probably going to pay $150, $160 for this elaborate test. But what that shows us is if we put the fuel pressure gauge on there, we start it up, we note how much fuel pressure you got. And then let's say it's 40 pounds. Well, the fuel pump's doing its job. It's working great. Car's running fine. You got the correct fuel pressure. But it's a residual test. You shut the car off and let it set overnight, and when we see how much pressure it is retained overnight, you see what I'm saying? If it's reading 0, we know we got bleed back into the tank. But you could either pay to have that.
Let me interject here just a second.
All right.
I do know that since I have had the car for over a year now, it's cranked every morning just fine. This is usually after a few miles or maybe a long trip, and it doesn't. It's hard to tell. I really haven't kept up with it, but you're telling me if I cycle the key 3 times in the morning, and it starts right up, then it's the fuel pump.
You've got a drain back. You've got fuel returning to the tank. But we need to do that.
8 times out of 10, it's going to start no matter what you're doing. But it's got that hard start every now and then, and it's not throwing codes or anything. So I didn't know anything about the residual.
But like I said, instead of having a big elaborate test done, you can check that for yourself just by cycling the key on and off 3 times. Now, if you do that and it never gives you another problem, we know what's going on with it. Now, Andy, have you had this cranking problem when it's been cold? When it's hot too?
Usually it happens when the car is hot. It's never happened when it's cold.
All right. Let me tell you like this. If you don't have a code, chasing cam and crank sensors is probably going to be a waste of time. If there's a problem with those, you will usually set a code. But there is one thing that is common, and it's very common, and it will not set a code. And that is when there is a problem with the injector driver circuit and the powertrain control module. Let me tell you how this works. See, the injector driver circuit is what cycles those injectors on and off. So they're busy, and they get hot as a firecracker. And then what winds up happening is that you drive the car, you park it, you pull into 7-Eleven, you shut it off, you go inside, you get a cup of coffee, and you come back out, and the darn car don't want to start. And you let it sit there a little bit, and then it fires back off again. What happens is you've got a hot heat soak issue going on. And because what happens is when you shut the vehicle off, electrical components actually increase in temperature before they start cooling back down. And that increase in temperature of that injector driver circuit, it'll just cause it to go completely haywire with a high resistance. And then once it cools back down, everything goes back. It's fine again. So let's try the 3-key cycle situation. The other scenario with this is that if you have the problem when it's hot, and it's hard to diagnose, is the reason I'm telling you this. You really got to discuss this with the tech, and hopefully he understands what you're saying. But the thing is, it's very, very common. A hot heat soak with the PCM, the computer itself, the injectors, when it's hot, it will not operate them until they cool off just a little bit. So let's try the three key, the key cycle thing. If that takes care of it, fuel pump. If not, where I'm leaning. Maybe have to hunt down a computer for the car.
Understand? Okay, but that just one more thing. When you do the cycle on the key, if it starts right up with no issues, then we know we have a residual valve problem.
Well, we're going to have to try it. We're going to have to try. We're going to have to try this cold, and we're going to have to try it when it's hot. We're going to have to try it both. And see if the problem goes away. Usually if it's a residual fuel pressure issue where you got fuel returning to the tank, you usually always notice it when it's cold in the morning after it's set overnight. But if you've got the issue when it's hot too, that could be a injector driver circuit, because it usually takes a little time, Andy. It usually takes a few hours for the fuel to drain back into the tank out of the lines. So, check it both. Cycle the key both, hot and cold. Try to get some rhyme or reason with it, and we'll pin this thing down. Thanks for the call, buddy.
Hello and welcome back to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO. My name is Josh McCarthy, the one sitting in the chair in the control room answering your questions to really just kind of see what your question is, to pass you on to the guy who was here specifically to answer your questions. Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic himself, 844-580-9326. Cars, trucks, vans, all the above. You got a question, Larry has your answers. 844-580-WDBO. Larry, you said you wanted to talk about extended warranties earlier in the show.
Yeah, there's things that I always, think of as basically kind of a common sense type of situation that, it's common sense for me, but a lot of people don't realize this. Number one, let's say you go to buy a brand new vehicle. That's one of the things they're going to approach you with before you sign on the dotted line. They're going to ask you if you want to go ahead and get an extended warranty for the new car that you're buying.
Right.
And I tell you, there's a lot of folks goes ahead and buys the extended warranty when they buy a new car. Now, this is the key to it. A lot of folks don't realize, well, your extended warranty isn't going to cover anything non-maintenance repair until your factory warranty expires. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's kind of making some sense, but
Okay. Why would you buy another warranty if that is in full effect, that's going to run and coincide with the factory warranty? Right. Let's say when you buy a car and they say, well, if you buy the extended warranty, that means you're not going to have any out-of-pocket repairs. I'm not talking about maintenance. I mean, non-warranty. You're not going to have to pay for any repairs to 100,000 mile, and this warranty is only $4,500. Well, now you think about that, and we're just going to include it into your payments, so that way you don't have to write a big check for it. Now, folks, let's say that let's say your factory warranty doesn't expire until 70 or 75,000 mile, and that's about a common average in a lot of cases. So you're going to pay that much money for them to warranty the vehicle for what, 25,000 mile? Wow. Do you understand what I'm saying here? And see, when people are financing a car, they're like, well, I've got to worry about my payment. I can't have a big repair or anything like that on top of it. But you got to look at it like that. Folks, the thing is, if you're going to buy an extended warranty, you want it to go into effect after your factory warranty expires. You see what I'm saying? You don't want to buy one when the car is new. You want to be looking for an extended warranty as your factory warranty is coming to an end. Buying it when you buy a new car is the worst time to actually purchase one. So kind of keep that in mind. There's a few other things, too, that we're going to try to mention about extended warranties during the second hour. But Bill and Coco, Dwight and Kissimmee, Winter and Fillmore, and Mike in Orlando, Tom in Orlando. Folks, that number is also easy to remember, 844-580-WDBO. We got 4 open lines. Go ahead and hop on board during the top of the hour news break, and we'll get back with all of you here coming up on the second hour. Oh, I like it. Yeah. You got plenty of folks to borrow sugar from, right? Hey, folks, welcome to the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. It's a show where you call in, you ask your car a question, and you can't beat the price because it's free. That number is 844-580-9326. We do have 2 open lines if you want to hop on board. Number, again, if you can remember the 844 and the station that you're listening to, which is 580 WDBO. And if you want to listen to it on your Alexa or your smart speaker or whatever, you just tell it to play WDBO, and you'll hear me on there every Saturday from 3 until 5. It's that easy. Also, we take your automotive questions and my comments, and we place them on our new YouTube channel so other folks can maybe find the same help that you seek. Plus, you can play it back anytime you want. That number, again, is 844-580-9326. And if you need to call the shop, you can either leave a message or somebody may answer the phone. They don't tell me any of this stuff anymore. 407-629-2661. And if you talk to JD, tell him that Larry said hey, and he's still doing corporate tax stuff and doing it all weekend, if you can imagine that. So, folks, our sponsors are very important to the show. We all pitch in to bring you the program every week. So if you enjoy it, please patronize our sponsors and tell them you heard about them here on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Orlando Auto Upholstery. Interiors, convertible tops, carpet seats, door panels, headliners, anything that you've got sagging or ripping or falling apart on the inside of your vehicle. Orlando Auto Upholstery, those are the folks you want to get a hold of. To find out more or to give them a call and get some more information, maybe get some estimates, OrlandoAutoUpholstery.com. They're great folks. I've been using them for years. They do excellent work, and they're very affordable. And they're good folks all the way around. Amsoil synthetic lubricants for your car, truck, van, SUV, boat, motorcycle, lawn equipment, you name it, Amsoil makes a lubricant for it. Folks, after your first oil change on a brand new vehicle, you want to switch the car over to Amsoil. Run it 1 year, 15,000 mile intervals. You'll have a vehicle that'll literally outlast, it'll probably outlast you. It's a fountain of youth. You won't wear your engine out. It'll go for just about forever. Anything molten metal can break, but as far as a lubrication failure, it won't happen as long as you got Amsoil in the vehicle. You buy a good used vehicle, everything runs and drives out the way it's supposed to right now. Say it's got 120,000 miles on it. You want to get as many miles out of the vehicle as you can. Listen, it's not too late to switch it to Amsoil. That's the time to do it. Switch it to Amsoil while everything's in good shape and working correctly. And you know what? It's going to stay like that. You're eliminating the future wear of that engine by using the Amsoil. It runs to heat and friction. It's got additives in it that helps prevent any oil leaks. It's a fountain of youth for an engine. I mean, it's that simple. And if you use it in the transmission, well, that's a double whammy. You're in a situation where it helps with the ester they put in these products along with the polyalpha-olefin base stocks. It helps condition seals, especially in a transmission. See, seals get hard and brittle over a period of time exposed to any type of hydrocracked petroleum. And that's what makes them hard to start with over a period of time. That's the reason that your Mercedes smokes when you start it up at 125,000 miles. It's because not only are they using hydrocracked petroleum oil in a mobile bottle, but they don't put any ester in it, so it makes the seals get hard. They leak. And, valve guide seals let that oil leak down into the cylinders. It's just the lubrication is everything. That is everything, and the correct lubrication. And it's hard to get to the point where you're saying, you see all these different oils and stuff. Well, Larry, how can they only be one? Well, really, there is only one. There is only one that's that good, and that's AMSOIL. There's a couple small lubrication companies, Redline. I give them credit too. They're a good oil company, but they're small. They're out in California. AMSOIL rules the roost. They were the first ones. Everybody else came after them, and most of them don't even make a polyalpha olefin synthetic anymore. So kind of think about where you're going when you come to picking out the best oil for your vehicle. You got any other questions, or you just want to read up on it a little bit more? AMSOIL.com. It's that simple. And Jasper Engines and Transmissions. If you need a motor or transmission, and folks, we've got fleet companies out to Yang Yang now wanting to repower their current fleets, and we're in the middle of some big, huge contracts. They want to use Jaspers. They want to repower with Jasper Engines and Transmissions because they know they're going to be able to leave there with these service vehicles with a 100,000-mile warranty. That means they want front ends done, AC and everything else, seats reupholstered. Thank goodness. I mean, Orlando Auto Upholstery is going to be busy too. But by going and refurbishing these vehicles, these are 05 and 06 service vans and stuff, by repowering them like that, well, they're going to be into these vehicles for about half of what it would cost to replace them with new ones, So, and who would want to do that if you didn't have a 100,000-mile warranty along with it, So it's a no-lose situation. And plus, you'll be able to get just as much service life back out of these vehicles as if you were to buy brand new. So, a lot of companies are now really starting to look at this. And then, you got to consider that when it comes to your own personal vehicle. You lose a transmission or a motor, that's not the time to get rid of the vehicle, when it's broke. The time to do it is if you've got a nice late model vehicle, it needs something like an engine or transmission, God forbid, it happens. Consider a Jasper and repowering what you got as opposed to trading it in and getting nothing for the car. And if last but not least, the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center located in Orlando, Florida. Engines, transmissions, brakes, suspension, steering, electrical repairs, and of course, AMSOIL synthetic lubricants. You can visit us at magicmechanic.com. Email me directly, Larry at magicmechanic.com. All right, Josh, who is up next to kick off the second hour?
We're sticking here in Orlando, going back in time to 1973 to talk to Mike. Go ahead, Mike. Hey there, Mike.
Hey, guys. Thanks for... Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. How you guys doing today?
We're doing great, Mike. I got an oldie. I love it. What you got going on with it?
Hey, I was just about to say, Larry, I don't know. I might stump you on this one, but we'll see.
Right.
I got a 73... I got a 73 Chevy C10 half-ton pickup. It's got the original 250 cubic inch engine, inline six. A couple of weeks ago, I went out and started it. It started up, and I shut it down. I went back to start it again, and it wouldn't crank. And so I pulled the distributor cap off. Someone had changed out. Before I purchased this truck a couple of years ago, someone had already changed out the original distributor and put an HEI distributor in it.
Okay.
And so when I pulled the cap off, the button, the tab on the rotor, it was broken and had a bad spot in the cap. So I replaced the cap and the rotor, and I can't get it to do anything now. It just turns over. That's all it's firing because I checked the firing, but it won't do anything. It won't even try to turn over. It won't even try to start, rather.
All right. Now, you got spark at the plugs, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if you got spark at the plugs, and have you tried maybe just adding a little bit of gas down the carburetor or anything?
Yes, I've done that as well, and it's got an old one-barrel Rochester on it, and it needs to be rebuilt.
And it still wouldn't do anything if you added a little fuel to it?
No.
Okay. Well, Mike, there is the possibility that it could have jumped time. And if that's the case, of course, it's not going to want to start up on you. But on that one there, I think it's got a timing chain. I believe it does on that old 250. If the timing chain got real loose and it jumped time, then your distributor and the whole engine would be out of whack. You wouldn't have you wouldn't have enough compression to start the motor. Now, let me ask you this: if you take the cap off and you have somebody crank the engine, do you see the rotor actually turning?
I've yet to try that. I'll have to get my wife out to do that, and I've yet to try that.
All right, you're going to need to do that. Now, I'm going to tell you, a lot of times, some of those older engines, if that's the original engine, some of those timing chain and gears back then, the actual cam gear, the camshaft gear that the chain will go around, was made out of a fiber material as opposed to steel. The replacements were steel, but that fiber gear would lose its teeth over a period of time. Then what would happen is, it would, the actual chain would just start slipping on the gear itself. It wouldn't turn the camshaft any longer. So that could be an issue. Now, what I will tell you to do, I don't know if you're able to do this or not, but I would take out the number one spark plug, put your thumb over the spark plug hole, if you can reach it down there, your finger or whatever, and have somebody bump the engine over until you feel the compression come out of number one, with that spark plug out. You'll feel the pressure. It'll blow your thumb out of the hole a little bit. And then when you feel that, kind of look over at the distributor and see where the rotor's actually pointing. See if it's pointing to number one on the distributor cap itself. Now, when you start bumping it over to get it up on number one and you feel that compression coming up, you should be able to look at the harmonic balancer on the front of the crankshaft and see if it's coming up and getting a line with. You want to look at the line on the harmonic balancer and align that up with your timing markets on the timing cover. But you want to make sure it's on compression stroke, and the only way you're going to know that is to have your thumb over that spark plug hole with the spark plug removed. But have somebody just keep bumping the key over until you feel compression. Now, if you don't feel any compression, I guarantee you the timing chain's gone. You see what I'm saying? That because you won't be able to encapsulate the compression because the valve timing would be off so far. But your problem very well could be in that timing chain. But let's see if you can't put it up there on top dead center and find the compression on it and get the timing mark lined up and see where that rotor's pointing. If it's not pointing at number one, then we know we've got a problem with that timing chain, Mike. I appreciate your call, and I wish you the best of luck with this, buddy.
A bunch of other automotive buzzwords I'm going to try to throw at you. Freezent. So whatever you got going on, call in right now. Larry is here to answer your question. However severe or minor it may be. 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO, or feel free to download our WDBO app. We are streaming live wherever you get internet all over the world. So if you're in Bali or Bora Bora and you want to know what's going on with the Orlando automotive world, Magic Mechanic will be here in your pocket every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you want to go back to the phones, Dwight, or Larry, I should say, let's head on over to Kissimmee and talk to Dwight. Go ahead, Dwight.
Hey, neighbor Larry.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. 2016 Ford Edge, 2.0, 61,000 miles. Do I need to worry about the belts and hoses?
Dwight, I'm going to tell you.
No squeaks, no leaks.
It's like this. What will take that motor out will not be, most likely, a hose. What will happen is it's the plastic thermostat housing or a plastic T in the cooling system line somewhere. Maybe a heater hose or something along those lines. That's what happens. It's not usually a hose. Today's coolants are really gentle on rubber, on something like a radiator or heater hoses. It's the daggone plastic that they're using on this stuff. That's what takes a motor out. people get out here driving. Next thing you know, they got an empty cooling system. By the time they realize it, they done engine damage. You know, the best thing in your case, I'm not going to tell you to run to a shop, and tell everybody to start replacing your cooling system hoses. That you can usually get a good 10 years out of the hoses. It's the plastic stuff that usually starts deteriorating, and that's what gets us in trouble. But, you got to be your own judge when it comes to that. Just look everything over real good. And if you see any white or any chalky looking anything on any of those plastic fittings, especially where the upper radiator hose connects to the engine, that's the thermostat housing in most cases. And if you see anything like that that's got any white on it whatsoever, you want to look for any kind of white chalky substance. That could be a very first sign that there's something cracked and maybe got a small leak in it. And we all know when it comes to plastic, just like, these plastic radiators, the plastic and aluminum radiators, they started making all these cooling system components out of plastic. And, it might be biodegradable and make all the tree huggers happy, but I'll tell you what, it doesn't do your engine any favor when it's sitting there on the H on your temperature gauge. So, just look for any type of seepage or leaking. And like I said, when you do get around, say you want to replace the hoses in a couple more years, replace every piece of plastic there is in that cooling system. If you see any T's, any thermostat covers, anything like that, have them replaced at the same time. If not, you're waiting until they do go bad, because trust me, they're not going to last forever. None of them do. But look for the plastic, Dwight. I appreciate your call, and you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. We got about 2 minutes left, Larry. You want to try and get one more caller in?
Yeah, you pick.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pick Tom from Orlando, since it seems like he was taking care of his car. He just wants some advice on what else to look out for. Go ahead, Tom. Calling for your 06 Buick.
Hey, Larry. I got a 2006 Buick LaCrosse, and actually I got the wrong with the car. I picked it up with 15,800 miles on it.
Wow.
And I'm just afraid something's going to go wrong with it. But I'm driving around in a Quantum car. It's brand new, 2006, but I'm driving in 223.
Yeah. Listen, what you need to do now, Tom, is, I hate to tell somebody to start spending money on a car that has literally no miles on it, but you have an age factor there with this vehicle. You want to keep it the way it is, and it's like our last call. He was calling about hoses. Buddy, every one of them needs to be replaced. All the cooling system hoses, anything made out of plastic on that cooling system needs to be replaced. You need to do every fluid on it. You need to do every fluid on it, all the coolant. You need to flush that brake system out, get all of that old brake fluid out of there. And by all means, Tom, I would definitely go and have it AMSOILed, motor and transmission. And while we're at it, I'd like to put the Ice 32 air conditioning additive into it as well.
Yeah, I've done all that.
You've already done all that. Well,
I have in the past. I get that Ice 32 and, AMSOIL. I use that usually all the time. I've taken it for a trip for over 1,500 miles, and it, just nothing moves. I'm afraid of the water pump or something like that.
On a car that age, it wouldn't. That's a good thing to bring up. I would probably replace it if it was my car. I would, just because it being at the age that it's at. Tom, thank you so much for your call. What a wonderful vehicle. 15K, 06 LaCrosse. Smoking nice car, dude.
Let's go ahead and focus on the open mics right now. If you download the WDBO app in the Google Play Store or Apple App Store, you can push the open mic button and send us an open mic that way, and Larry will answer your questions. For example, here is a question.
Hey Larry, JR from Orlando. Want to give you a quick shout out. Enjoy listening to you on Saturdays when I do my bike ride here on the Winter Park Trail. Heard your first caller talk about replacing glass in a car. If you could just give the listeners out there information about using factory authorized glass, and if you don't, how much the sound of the increase in sound in your car can go up without using factory authorized glass. Thanks Larry, enjoy the
Wow. I actually covered that here not too long ago. If you get a crack in your windshield and it has to be replaced, everybody's going to call up a glass place or whoever your insurance company recommends. But I'm going to tell you, if you do not go back a lot of times with a factory windshield, they are... some of them are referred to as a silent screen. A lot of different things go into this glass that goes in for windshields. And if you do not go back sometimes with a factory windshield, that the interior of that vehicle becomes so much. The noise from outside, the driving noise, will double, especially on a Ford pickup truck. I couldn't believe it. I had a customer come in that had actually had a non-Ford glass put back in his truck, and he, compared to the inside of mine, I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" The decimals doubled from the outside noise that you would hear. But that windshield does a whole lot more than just keep wind and rain off of you. If it's not got the deadening sound, products in along with the manufacturing of it. It can be so noisy. You do not want a windshield like that. I'm going to tell you like this. Your insurance company is going to pay X amount of dollars to have a windshield replaced. If it's another $100, $200 to get a factory windshield, I would spend it out of my pocket in a second just to make sure that I had the sound deadening that goes along with the windshield itself. But yeah, some folks has really gotten a rude awakening when it comes to windshield replacements like that. But make sure you try to go back with a factory windshield if you can with your car. If you don't care, if it doesn't matter, don't worry about it. A lot of vehicles don't have the sound deadening feature in the windshield. But on later model, nicer vehicles, your luxury kind of cars, you better ask for it or ante up a little out of your own pocket, or you'll probably be extremely disappointed. What a great call! I did my mountain bike ride early yesterday morning, so have fun on the trail.
I guess that in a series of events, I should go mountain biking tomorrow morning so we can keep the trend going.
I may do it again tomorrow. I just love it. The only problem with mountain biking right now, if you're on some of these wooded trails, we haven't had any rain for a little bit. So you come down some of these hills, or they've got roots and everything else, and then all of a sudden you plant your front tire into a curve, and that you're starting to get some sugar sand popping up, so it's a little bit more of a challenge right now. So
are you skidding around due to the dry sand, or is it kind of a dusty atmosphere?
Well, it's not just that. You hit sugar sand just right on a daggone mountain bike, it'll throw you off the mountain bike. You're sitting there trying to dodge trees, so it makes it an interesting ride. But that's what's nice about the mountain bike trails, especially here in Central Florida. You get all the leaves that kind of fall on top of these trails, too. So that helps you from having to encounter a lot of loose sugar sand. But it's starting to pop up a lot because we just haven't had any rain to help keep that sand compacted.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens. We'll follow along with Tom Terry and his weather team to see if rain's coming to keep Larry on top of his bike for the foreseeable future. Bill is calling in from Cocoa. Bill's got a question about his 2002 Monte Carlo. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Bill.
I'm a second-time caller. The first time you saved me about $3,000, so I figured it'd be smart to call back.
All right.
My car, at first, the right front tie rod end wore out, so I replaced that and the other side. Then I put new rotors on it and brakes. And what it was doing was I had a massive vibration in the right front when I'm turning to the right and giving it gas.
Okay.
When I'm coasting through a right-hand corner, it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
So I put I also put new motor mounts and transmission mounts on it.
Good
and
job.
That got rid of about 70% of it.
Okay.
So I still got it. It's just not as bad.
How many miles are on the car, Bill?
137.
Okay.
It's a SS too. I don't know if that makes any. It's an Earnhardt SS. I don't know if that makes any difference.
Yeah. It's kind of, what engine do you have in it?
0.8. And also, when I'm going straight down the highway, if it's like going over an overpass and going up and down, when it gets to the bottom, it'll vibrate a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know where else to go.
Yeah, Bill, it's like this. Most likely that right outer CV joint on the front drive axle is going bad. Because if it's giving you that little bit of a vibration when you accelerate with a right-hand turn, that's usually where you're getting your issue from. See, this is what's got me concerned. When you get a vehicle that age, that you can get a reman, a good reman drive axle for that car for probably somewhere around 250, 275. The problem with it is it depends on how many times that joint's been remanufactured. I would do some homework and do some searching around, and even if I had to pay a little extra, I would look to see if maybe AC Delco has one of those available in a reman, or either maybe see if Napa carries one. See, if you get one from the wrong place, it's probably been a reman from China. You're going to throw it in there, and it's liable to be worse than the drive axle that you have now. Because when you start dealing with a car of that age, what happens is some of these parts get remanufactured so many daggone times that it shouldn't even be resold, and that's what happens. They put new boots on it and they throw it back out and put it in a box and they sell it again. And in your case, there, sounds like a pretty nice OSS, and you want to keep it nice and smooth, but you want to get the best drive axle you can buy. So I would say check to see if AC Delco's got one available. Like I said, I don't care if it's $100 more. You'll be glad that you spent the extra money. Same thing with a Napa. Check and see if Napa has their own brand. That their reman stuff is usually rigorous compared to some of these other, common parts stores that you see. But I would definitely check with Napa, because you're usually going to get a top quality, reman part from Napa, and the same thing if it's an AC Delco, and for a car like that. I wish you luck, and I appreciate. Go ahead.
I also heard that when you change that axle, that I read one guy on the internet said that the inner bearing was he did the axle and everything, and the vibration didn't go away, and then he went back and changed the inner bearing, and it kind of went away, or it went away.
Well, on that's got a 4T65E, I think, transmission in it, and you better hope that it's not a bearing like he's discussing, because, see, on that one, you got a carrier bearing, and that's on the inside of the transmission, Bill. That's not even there's like a bushing, and then it goes into a side bearing that holds the third member in it. I don't know what he's talking about there, but that would probably require pulling the transmission and disassembling it. I don't believe that's your problem, not with 130K on it. I think,
right.
I think in your case, just a good reman drive axle is going to put you on top of the totem stick. So, yeah, but it's important that we get a good drive axle, and it's not as easy as going to the parts store around the corner and buying one, because it's probably going to be worse than the one you already got. So, I wish you luck, Bill, and I appreciate you holding on, buddy.
Yeah, I did that with my rotors too. I put AC Delco on there because all the cheap stuff is made with recycled metal.
It's some of this.
AC Delco is.
you get a lot more of a quality part, so I'm not saying everything that they got doesn't come from China. There's probably a few things that does, but most of their hard parts, like drive axles and brake components, is U.S. made, and it's made out of high-quality stuff. So good luck, my friend.
Thank you, Bill. If you guys are hanging on, Fillmore, Mike, Tom, and Tom, we got one more segment coming up here after this break, where you're listening to the Magic Mechanic Show right here on WDBO. McCarthy sitting next to Larry.
Hello, this is Tom. I have a 2014 Chevrolet Sparks, and I have it at the shop. And it went back a second time. What it was doing was it was stutter. The engine would stutter a little bit, and then it go into limp mode. There'd be two check engine lights on. One just plain regular one. The second one has a white arrow pointing to the oil pan. Then there's a light showing like I lost traction control. It has a little swerve out. So they replaced the crankshaft angle sensor.
Okay.
And I was able to drive it for about 10 miles. And it went back, it stuttered and it went back into limp mode. And the same lights came on.
Hey there, Tom. I'm not sure if you're inside of a windstorm right now. Larry, do you mind trying to answer what you have there, or can I try to get to him off the air?
Well,
or maybe we can move on to another one. I apologize, Tom. Something's up with your phone right now. Let's go ahead and talk to Fillmore, calling from Orlando. Go ahead, Fillmore.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Good.
I just want to thank Larry for all the info you gave over the years. I listened to him for a long time.
You're so kind, Fillmore.
I have a problem now with my 2005 Chevy Suburban where I changed a couple things. I changed some, what do you call it, pack and throttle body, and the still having the same problem where the TC light will come on and the engine would say the engine power reduced. And I don't know. Yeah.
Is it a torque converter clutch error that you're getting?
Yeah, it's a TC.
Okay.
I think that's what it is.
Do you know? Do you remember what the code is that it's giving you, Fillmore?
No, I sure don't. Didn't do no check in the code.
Okay. Yeah, let me tell you how this is going to go down here. If it's got the original transmission in it, you may wind up having to put a torque converter in it. But depending on the code that you have, some of those 4L60E transmissions, some of them had an internal leak in the valve body. After the vehicle aged a little bit, there's actually a valve in the valve body that starts leaking. And when it does, it'll usually give you a PO 1870, real common code. So it's most likely either the valve in the valve body that's leaking or the torque converter clutch itself. We would have to drive it to verify, but what it does is if that torque converter clutch is actually slipping, it'll set a code. And then if you have a pressure loss that's causing it to skip, which would be the 1870, what we normally do with that is we replace the valve body. We usually get a remanufactured valve body and bolt it up, and that normally takes care of that problem. But, yeah, in your case, that's a common issue we run into quite a bit. And that was one of the years where they actually would reduce the vehicle power whenever that code would actually come up. But it's going to need to have a little diag work done to it, mostly a test drive with a scan tool hooked to it. That pretty much tell us everything that we need to know with it. And in some cases, Fillmore, it might be worth putting a transmission additive in there to help deglaze the torque converter clutch. It's going to depend on what we feel whenever we test drive it, whether that's worth a shot or not. But I appreciate you hanging on and us getting to you here, and hopefully that gives you a hand. And if you need to get a hold of me, I'm sure that you know how to do that as well. So Hopefully it's not too expensive to get you fixed. Folks, that's going to just about wrap us up. It won't be fair to go ahead and take you, Mike or Tom. I'd love to hear your questions, and I'd love to be able to help you. You can go to larry@magicmechanic.com. Go ahead and send me an email there, and I'll see what I can do off the air and try to give you a hand with both those vehicles. Folks, thanks for tuning in. You listeners, customers, and show sponsors are the reason we do the show, and I have a job. You can tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time in Central Florida on 107.3 FM, HD Radio 96.52, and AM 580. Worldwide at WDBO.com, and click Listen Live, or just tell your smart speaker to play WDBO Radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you need help with your vehicle, you can always call Magic Mechanic at 407-629-2661. Visit our website, magicmechanic.com, or you can also email car questions directly to me, Larry@magicmechanic.com. And folks, don't forget to go to our Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. Just put in Magic Mechanic YouTube. You'll pull up all kinds of shows from the past. You can play their entirety, and you can also find all kinds of individual questions that may pertain to your vehicle as well. And don't forget to hit the subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. And folks, until next Saturday, be safe in and out of your car, and we'll see you back here at 3 p.m.